with the Quad meeting now over, all eyes are now on the key bilateral talks that are now slated between directly one-on-one meetings. Prime Minister Narendra Modi meeting with the US President Joe Biden. As per the sources, the two leaders are also expected to hold constructive and straightforward dialogue on several issues that remain politically significant, including the ongoing situation that is going on in Ukraine. Highlighting that the Quad scope has become even more extensive despite COVID-19 challenges. Prime Minister Narendra Modi had said that the mutual trust and determination of the member countries, including the US, Australia and Japan, is giving new energy and enthusiasm to the democratic powers. All right, so straight away, let's get a point of view from our experts joining us here on the broadcast. We have Maruf Raza with us on the broadcast, and also quickly introducing Surendra Kumar, who is a former ambassador, also with us. So good morning to you, gentlemen. Maruf, to you first. It is not a military alliance, so to say, but the threat from China is said to be both indirect and direct. Do you believe that it will play out in the grey zone most of the time with these meetings now taking place with the top leaders?
Well, I've always maintained that China continues to be the big elephant in the room. And one of the reasons that Quad came together and picked up momentum in the last 2-3 years was because of acts directly or indirectly attributable to China. Whether it was the COVID menace, which many believe, and the US has said again and again, came out of the labs of China, and China is reluctant to let countries do a full and thorough investigation, or it is China's more aggressive policies, whether it's South China Sea, which is repeatedly referred to in various statements by Quad leaders, about free and fair movement being allowed as per the laws of the seas, where China has been interrupting shipping activity, particularly in the South China Sea, which is a very, very important sea lane for trade. But more than that, I think the Chinese high-handedness in dealing with countries and the total monopoly the Chinese have established on supply chain links has got the world, especially the Quad leaders, to think of the next route that they must adopt. Here, 2-3 things will have to take. One is the fact that there is the need, much greater need, for Quad countries, I believe, to have at least a fairly pronounced military posture, because it was to curtail China's muscle-fixing tactics that Quad has come together so rapidly. And all countries that make up Quad have a problem with China, maybe different levels, whether it's United States having a trade problem with China and China's aggressive intent with Taiwan, whether it is India, which is the only country that shares a border with China, and we know of the border tensions that have been with China for 2 years,
right,
or whether it is Australia, which has received many Chinese sanctions after the Australians were critical about China's COVID mishandling, or Japan, which has traditionally been on the Chinese radar screen, not now, but from World War II.
Right.
So quite clearly, Quad needs to define, amongst other things, it has created many peaceful initiatives. Many of them have not really taken off.
All right.
But Quad needs to put together a significant maritime military agenda, signaling to China that
and it seems that maritime ventures is something that is also being mentioned when we are looking at the dialogues taking place between these countries there. Maruf, just getting back to you on that, Ambassador Kumar also with us, but I'm told that Madhav is joining us live from Tokyo. Our next round of meeting is face-to-face dialogue, bilaterals, that will be taking place with the US President Joe Biden there. And Madhav, this is also coming at a time when the US President had also praised Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the democratic processes, how it is being encouraged back home. This is what the US President had to say.
Well, absolutely. And in fact, just before I come across to all those points, if you see those group of people who are now just crossed us less than 60 seconds ago, that is a group of people who had gathered right outside the Prime Minister's office. And even as the Quad summit was underway inside and the leaders were having lunch just ahead of the bilateral meet that's expected to begin any minute now, that was a group of people protesting China's presence in the Senkaku Islands with big posters posters, banners showing photographs of those islands that have, they say, been illegally captured by China. You know, that's the sentiment here on ground in Japan. These are very real issues. These are issues that very much perturb people in all of the countries, not just when things happen at the LAC back home in India, but right here in Japan as well. There is this sense that China is playing the aggressor and in fact trying to capture not just these islands in different areas, you know, artificially construct islands, expand them and put up military bases in different parts, not just in the South China Sea, but different parts in different oceans in this entire region. So this is the huge change that the Quad also is expected to bring about. If there is maritime cooperation between the Quad countries, then the huge swath of oceans between the Indian Ocean, the Southeast Asian region and the Pacific Islands could be a very important area where the United States, where Japan and where Australia and India can play an important role to secure their own maritime interests and safety in this entire region. Because the time perhaps the sentiment has come to take some kind of a decisive action. What that action is, what the framework of that cooperation is, that perhaps we'll only get to know when the formal part of that Quad statement comes in, or perhaps something that is a work in progress at the moment. But nevertheless, an important area that is also being highlighted, and certainly the United States wants to push through at this point of time. We will have to see, of course, how the other countries react and what really happens on ground in terms of the cooperation when it comes to this maritime aspect. But the sentiment of Chinese aggression, what China is really doing on ground, very evident right here on ground in Tokyo.
All right, Ambassador Kumar, your point of view, because the Quad has faced some of the headwinds that are said to be complicated, especially when it comes to the advances on security, the ongoing conflict also in Ukraine and the expansionist policies of China, sir.
India-US relations are multi-layered, multi-dimensional. These issues certainly they do impinge on our Quad cooperation. But we have had problems, not problems, let us say differences on Ukraine. After all, the Assistant Secretary, Mr. Deep Singh came, he talked about consequences, and you saw what kind of reaction which we have. We have heard some statement from other representatives of Biden government saying that India should be on right side of history. But I think all those issues have been put to rest by very robust, strong statement of our EM Jaishankar in Washington. When he told them you buy more oil in Europe in one afternoon than you buy a whole month. He also told them the difference of fact remains that our relations are really multidimensional. Ukraine is one issue on which we have difference because we have relations, decade-long relations with Russia. And we certainly cannot just disown our defense is not only issue. We are other look at BrahMos, who is the only country which gave technology we produce to normal. But fact remains that we are all that we abstain for our national interest. We buy oil on discounted or less interest. We will really continue having defense cooperation with Russia. But at the same time, this is not either or. We have relations with USA.
But also to be highlighted, sir, when it comes to the trade dependency that all of these countries have had when it comes to China, and the presence of China here cannot be exactly denied just being at the elephant in the room. It is right there. For real. Requesting Ambassador Kumar and Maruf to continue to be with us. Madhav also joining us live from Tokyo. This is going to be the big coverage that we continue to get for our viewers on the other side of a very short break.